has never been a democracy. I mean, in a democracy,
democracy,
you would represent the needs of the people. That does not exist here.
Really?
Our government does not represent the needs of the people at all.
But you're against the government, period.
Well, yeah.
You said,
Government
so against the government.
oppressive.
What about courts? What about the police? How is that going to work in communism? There will be no police, no courts,
I
nothing?
mean, you have to look
No
at
regulations?
what causes crime.
Yes.
Crime is caused by economic inequality.
Really?
Yes. It's
Really?
It's through
Really?
lack of resources.
Really?
Exactly.
You never
Now, I'm not saying that there won't be murderers or rapists or anything like that in a communist society, but there would be extremely small compared to what we have now.
What do you think about Mr. Spector?
Is it what?
Spector? But forget his first name. He's a guitarist or an actor or something like that.
Phil Spector?
Yeah, Phil Spector.
What about him?
Well, I think he was the one who killed his wife, didn't he?
Oh yeah.
He did, right? He's quite wealthy. He's very wealthy.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure some other people will come to my mind, but we do know that there are wealthy people. Ted Bundy, for example, he wasn't poor. Yeah, he started to be a lawyer, and yet he was a serial killer. He wasn't poor at all,
Well,
right? So how can you explain
So let me
your
return
theory
to my
then?
point. So
Okay.
the idea that somehow jail stops crime or prevents murderers from happening
No, it
is
doesn't.
ridiculous.
No, it doesn't. You know what
doesn't.
jail does? It isolates people and punishes them. That's it.
Yeah.
It used to be called penitentiary for a reason, right? And you know that we abandoned this idea of penance, penitentiary. Now it's punishment, strictly punishment. You cannot rectify. It's still called correctional facility. You cannot correct them.
But it hasn't stopped murdering. It hasn't stopped raping. And people are aware of the consequences of the crime, and that doesn't stop them. So the idea that if we don't have jails, we're going to have a dozen fucking rapists or murderers happening is ridiculous. I mean, we already do, and we jail 25% of the world's prison population right here in the United
But
States.
you know why it is a good thing? Is because our police works very well. Because in other countries, you commit a crime, you never get caught. Here, you commit a crime, there is a much better chance that you get caught and therefore punished.
I mean, most of the criminals that are in the jails are mostly due because nonviolent
Drugs, okay,
So,
fine,
I mean-
change the laws, fine by me. But again, here's the law. I mean, you're for the laws, right?
Well, yeah,
And following the laws.
There
You
are
break the
still
law, you
gonna-
go to jail. Change the law, then you don't go to jail. That's how it works.
there will still be laws in a stateless society, but they wouldn't be imposed.
Who's gonna be
by
enforced
some
them?
The people will.
How so? Let's say there are three of us, okay? I kill you, or you kill me, whatever. Let's make it better. You kill me. Okay. Make it feel better. Then who's gonna give me just one second? Алло? Ну, я жду, они скоро должны приехать. Дай мне одну секунду, я тут разговариваю с человеком. Okay, bye. So I'm sorry.
Yeah.
So let's say you kill me. Do you think that you deserve? I mean, for no reason. Let's say I don't know, a rage. I cut you off. Of course, there'll be no cars in communism, but it's a different story. Let's say I cut you off by riding, a horse-drawn carriage, assuming there'll be dogs in communism. So, in rage, you murdered me.
Okay.
Where's the punishment? And you escape. Who's going to find you? Who's going to incarcerate you? And it's a huge country. Let's say there is communism in a huge country like America. Well, what's going to happen?
Let's say you do get incarcerated. Would that bring you? Let's say I get incarcerated. Would that bring you back? Would that, relieve the pain of the family to know that you're locked up or you're, I don't know, dead? I mean, you're playing into negative aspects of the human thinking. That it's revenge, and these are unhealthy emotional aspects to the human psyche.
Ted Bundy killed the first girl.
Yeah.
The first girl, okay? Had he been incarcerated right after killing the first girl, they would have been the second, and the third, and the fourth, and the fifth, and so on.
So let me give you a real-world example and not a hypothetical.
Okay.
So you see, They're a group in Chiapas, Mexico called the Zapatistas.
Okay.
They are an autonomous indigenous community. They are completely separate from the Mexican state. And so the way they do these things, as if there is a conflict between two people, and let's say someone is murdered, what they do first is they go to the families of the murdered and the murderer, and they settle it out themselves. The family settle it out. And so usually what happens is they detain the murderer, and they let both of the families of the victim and the perpetrator decide what they're going to do with it. So that's only one example of what you could do.
Okay, let's say you kill me. Okay, you kill me in New York. Okay, let's assume that there is a city in the communism called New York. Okay, and you escape somewhere in San Francisco, or better yet, you escape across the ocean. Well, let's keep it local. You escape within the same country, the same continent. Okay, you escape to San Francisco. I mean, my family has no clue how to find your family and settle the issue. Who's going to find you?
Well, I mean, that happens
And
now
punish
too,
you.
though. I mean, those are straw man arguments.
But
This
how-
happens at this. Currently, that happens anyway. So we're never going to eliminate rape or murdering. That's never going to happen. But in a communist society, it would be greatly diminished.
How so? Why so?
Well, because you have to think about what causes folks to murder people, what causes folks to
And
rape
what-
people. And you can attribute it to, how our society is, how, we're alienated from each other. And, in the United States, there is no sense of community.
Really?
Yeah.
Really? I came from Russia, from USSR.
Yeah, I'm from here.
Okay, well,
And people do not communicate. There's no sense of
Really?
community. It's only, individuals doing what they do.
well, I mean,
And going through the motions.
right here,
Well, this is
350.org.
different. This is different.
This is a community. Do you have friends? Do you have family?
Absolutely. But in a wider sense, in a broader sense, in like a wider state or country sense, that does not exist. In this group, you have people who are like-minded, and of course there's a community, and that's what we try to do when I do activism. Is we build sense of solidarity.
But
and
here's a
community.
good point that we brought up, a very interesting point, which is like-minded. What if there are, let's say, 20% of certain like-minded people and 80% of, different like-minded people? Is it possible in the communism? I mean, people are different. People have different thoughts, different ideas. So you would agree that in the communism there might be a situation where there are 20% of the population, let's say, well, maybe, I don't know, don't think that, communism, that system is really that great. What are they going to do with those 20%?
Well, I mean,
Dissenters.
They can do what they want. I mean,
Really, in communism?
we don't.
They say, you know what? Screw communism, I want capitalism. What are you going to do with them?
Well, in whatever area they live, they can try to, achieve a capitalist society, but that's highly unlikely. And compared to a communist society, where everything you need is in abundance and you don't have to work for anyone.
How do you create abundance?
Well, there
where
already
do you
is.
start?
There already is.
But you know why there is abundance now?
Well, because people create things, yeah.
Okay, let me ask you a very simple question.
Okay.
Where is there more abundance? In North Korea or South Korea?
And South Korea.
South Korea, why?
Well, because first of all, when the United States was at war with North Korea, they destroyed their dam, which is, they need that for rice making, and it completely destroyed their economy.
For North
But North Korea is not a communist state, so it's irrelevant to bring it up as an example.
Really?
It's a state capitalist
Okay,
state.
another question. Are the Chinese people, and obviously China has the largest population on earth, is China, from the material point of view, is it better off today, where it economically embraced capitalism, than the way it was our Mao Zedong? Do they live better?
Yeah, but I mean,
Yeah, why?
I'm not advocating state.
What?
I'm not advocating state capitalism or state communism.
But
I'm not advocating.
but
That's
remember-
not what we're talking about.
No, that's
So to bring China as an example is irrelevant. We're not talking.
No,
about
no, it is relevant
We're talking
because-
about a stateless, classless society, which is actual communism. China is not a communist.
But this is-
not when Mao was in power. He was definitely not. There was no communism.
no communism.
So to bring that up.
But the point, but we were talking about prosperity, how to get wealth and prosperity. So the point that I'm trying to make is that call it what you want, totalitarian, non-socialist, non-communist, non-whatever, the systems that we had in China before and they have now. The new system, which is definitely, you would call capitalism, economically, right? Not
Yeah, I would
politically,
call-
but economically capitalism, because profit is allowed, private property is allowed in China now. So because of capitalism, the prosperity shot up dramatically. I mean, dramatically, in just several decades. So my question now is, how would it generate prosperity
that's
in
that's an oversimplification. It's not exactly. Capitalism, yes, but it was through trade with other nations that it became, more prosperous. It was through,
well, capitalism, yeah, trade, that's part of capitalism, that's right,
Yeah,
yeah.
you're right. But before Mao Zedong, liberated China, it was a third world country. It was, a
Back then,
colony of,
course.
Europe exploited China, the Americans exploited China. It was completely,
Okay.
there was no way it would have developed either way unless Mao Zedong had, made the peasants revolt and, ushered in this new Chinese state. They completely overthrew colonialism, which is an achievement in itself. If that did not happen, then China would have stayed a third world nation.
Do you think that, let's say, Congo today or Angola today is better off now than when there were colonies? I talked to so many people from the former, colonial countries that gained independence, and most of them say that the things have gone
that's
down.
another strong man argument.
But
Time-
that's
as time
history.
progresses, things always get better. That's just history.
No, they don't
But-
always get better.
Well, materially,
Not
things
necessarily.
change. Things change.
Venezuela
To
was
say that
much
the
better.
Congo is better off when it was an 18th century colony to now. It's still a colony. It's still being exploited
independent.
by Europe and by the United States. This idea that they're somehow freer now is ridiculous. Their countries are in constant war with each other.
Do you think India is an independent country now?
To a certain extent, yeah. But,
Yeah, but it used to be a colony, right?
Oh yeah.
British colony.
And that was
and Pakistan.
Gandhi liberated India. And that's
You
it wasn't
brought-
through it wasn't through capitalism. It was by showing the people that they do not need to depend on Britain to get products, to trade with them, and to make things on their own. That is how they liberated India, and that is how he showed the people that you do not need a Western power to control you and dictate, how you live and how you should operate.
But weren't those the British who actually set up the system of ports, who built the roads, who instilled
India was developed. The Indian state was long developed before the British. Yeah, they were. When they were still in, when the Britain was still in caves, India had a flourishing society.
Well, it doesn't mean much.
They had long developed things, and then, as a matter of fact, they had a highly advanced textile industry, which was more advanced than Britain's, but when Britain conquered India, they destroyed their textile industry, so to prop up the Britain's textile industry. And that is how the West developed. It's through imperialism and it's through destruction of competition. So there was no free market ever in the development of the Western societies. So this idea that free market capitalism will solve, problems of everything is ridiculous.
But communism will.
Well, yeah.
And where
Stateless, classless communism
will. Okay. All right. Well, I guess good luck with that.
Very much.
Do you want to talk more?
And if you want, do you have any misconceptions? Do you want me to clear up again?
Yes. About communism.
Absolutely. Go ahead.
Where do you start?
Where do you start? You start.
Yes.
You start where you are.
What do you do first? Let's say you want to build communism. I mean, true communism. Where do you start?
I can't speak for the entire world. Every place is different. Every country has different culture.
Okay.
But what you ultimately must do is you must get. You have to build a sense of solidarity and community with the people.
How are you going to achieve that?
Well, you do actions like this.
But what if
address the needs of the people in the here and now.
But what if I disagree? But what if, again, we're going back to what if I disagree?
Disagree about what? Helping people?
Well, we have different ways of helping people. Your idea of helping people is one thing. My idea of helping people is totally different.
So what is your idea?
For instance, you're against the pipeline, I'm for pipeline. And in your mind, in my mind, we're thinking both are going to help people. So how we're going to have a consensus in your communist world?
I mean,
what are you going to do with me if I'm for the pipeline? What are you going to do to me?
I mean, if the majority does not want the pipeline, then you're not going to get the pipeline. I mean, a need of one individual should not supersede the entire community. That's ridiculous.
So
dictatorship almost.
Okay, so in other words, you're going to direct democracy. 51%, let's say 50% plus one person, decide one way. So this is the way it's going to be.
No, I'm not for that either. Through reasoning and actual, having
re-education camps.
No.
Okay.
You can.
But you reason, I reason.
Yeah.
I don't want to interrupt you, but it's just you're bringing up this thing. I mean, you're for reason, and this is your logic, and this is my reason. This is my logic, and as you can see, we disagree. So in America, with the laws and the society that we have over here, we have no problem. We can agree to disagree. And you're okay with it, I'm okay with it, I'm okay with it. It's ingrained in our psychic because we're Americans, because we believe in that. That's what it's based on, right? Now, in the society, we're just going to be different because you're not happy with today's society. What is going to look like if I disagree with you? What's going to happen? You assume that everybody's on the same page. But what if I don't?
Well, I mean, when it comes to basic things like, housing or food or water security or things like that, people generally agree. There's
but what if
consensus.
I am a renegade?
But,
I don't.
I mean,
what
these are straw man arguments. I mean, it doesn't. You're hypothesizing, and I'm talking about what actually is the case in the society.
But the case is, we're talking about this country that does exist. I mean, present. You're talking about, speaking about strongman, it's just in reverse. I'm talking about the existing society with its flaws, with whatever it is, it's functioning. For better or for worse, it's functioning, okay? You're talking about the utopia. You're talking about, in your mind, it's not a utopia. It's something that can be implemented. Why hasn't it in 100+ years? Why hasn't it? If it's such a great idea, why didn't people embrace? Are you talking about consensus? Why are people so stupid then? Why don't they say, wait a minute, it's such a great concept. Let's become communist country. Why didn't it happen?
Well,
what's the reason?
If you look at the mainstream media and say this country, they would never talk about it. And in this country, they spew lots of anti-socialist propaganda all the time. I mean, the way the media
it's
works,
the mass media. That's
yeah,
the
it's the mass media that prevents the actual truth and messages from getting across to the masses. But so let's say the Soviet Union. Communism did not develop there because as you know, the Bolsheviks had taken power, and once they were in power, they took steps to dismantle actual socialism from happening in the USSR. But
from day one, it was this way. From day one, literally from day one. You know that there were two revolutions in Russia in 1917. I'm sure you know that, right?
Yeah.
Okay, there was the February Revolution, and there was the October. And I used those dates because of the calendar at that time.
Yeah.
So the February Revolution, when there was a provisional government, they created Duma, which is, the Russian version of the parliament. Different voices could be heard over there. Tsar abdicated from his position, and Bolsheviks were part of it. And the funny thing is that Bolshevik, in Russian, Bolshevik means, right? The majority. Menshevik means the minority. In fact, The Bolsheviks were the minority. So right there, they started with, speaking of propaganda, this propaganda, they didn't have the majority in the parliament. So what did Lenin do? He sent his crunched out sailors to physically disband the Duma, the parliament. I mean, so much to democracy, and that's from day one. It's even before the October Revolution. So, I mean, whenever I hear that, Lenin,
that's why I'm not a Leninist.
Leninist, okay. Then who are you then?
Well,
You're
I'm an anarchist. That's what I
theorist.
am. I'm an anarcho-communist.
Anarcho-Communist, okay.
So, I mean, there were Soviet councils, there were worker councils.
Excuse me one sec, that's my new scrolling. We're supposed to be here. Hello? Алло? Да. Да, окей, где вы? Да, окей, сейчас одну секундочку. Got to go. It was nice talking to you. God bless communism. I mean, capitalism.
Do you know who Peter Kropotkin is?
Who?
Peter Kropotkin.
Of course I know Kropotkin.
You read it?
Of course I know. We had to know.
You read Kropotkin in
We had
Soviet
to.
Russia?
We had to. Talk to you later. Bye.